Hi, this is Cheryl, and thank you for clicking on my video. I will be going over how to cut stained glass in this video in more depth, and that part of the video will be slower. Then the rest of it will be time-lapsed, and I will be creating this Cardinal Suncatcher. A lot of people say that when you see a cardinal in your backyard or you see a cardinal, it means a loved one's spirit is visiting you. So let's get on with this, and I will explain to you how to use a glass cutter. It has a little wheel on the top, as you see I'm pointing to, and that wheel will score the glass. It does not cut the glass. So you have this little wheel on the very tip of it, and then there's a ball at the other end that you can tap the back of the glass to help the crack of the glass follow your score line. So I'm dipping my little wheel into some glass cutting oil, and you have to understand that glass wants to cut in a straight line. So in this case, I am scoring my cut line along the curved edge of this piece. What I did was I took my stained glass and I took my pattern pieces and I put them on the glass and marked around them with a silver Sharpie. So I'm going to use my running pliers, which has a little groove in it that marks the center, and it has a curved edge on the top. That curved edge will put pressure on both sides of the score line, which will help the glass to crack on your score line. So in the case of a curved line like this, you want to gently put some pressure till you hear a little bit of a crack on each side, so that the cut will follow your score line. So ever gently, I am applying some pressure so that the glass will crack along my score line. If you need to assist it, you can take the ball and tap it underneath the glass, and that will help assist the glass to crack along your score line. Now, when you're marking your pattern pieces onto the glass, you want to plan it out so that you can actually cut the pieces apart. Remember, glass cuts in a straight line, so if you put a piece along a cut edge, is going to cut right in half. So as you can see, my curve is too steep, so I need to make more of a straighter cut. So I did part of the curve, and I'm using my running pliers and applying pressure, and it cuts along my score line, and I went off straight because I knew that it would not cut the entire curve. So I'm going to continue my score line, and I'm applying some pressure, but it looks like more pressure than it actually is. But you just need to score it. And you'll see my running pliers crack the glass, but it goes in a straight line again. So that's okay because I have it scored, and all I have to do is apply a little pressure again, and the rest of it comes off. So now there are different types of glass cutters. The one that I have, I got off of Amazon. I have a link to it in my video description, and it comes in a package of 2. And there is also a pistol grip type cutter, which I have. I just never really used it because I learned how to use the pencil type. So I'm using my Grozer pliers, which has a curved edge on one side, and that edge is on that part of the pliers is on top. And because my piece of glass that I'm cutting off of this is so small, the running pliers wouldn't really work on it. So with the Grozer pliers, you want to grip the glass close to the scored edge and break it like you would be breaking a cookie. So you would take your Grozer pliers, apply the grip onto the glass, and pull down and away from the glass. So you pull down and away and the glass breaks off at the score line. That's really all there is to it. I also have nippers too, which you can use to trim off little pieces as you see fit. I'm going to use grocer pliers on this little piece. And you want to cut as much of the glass off as you can for your pattern, because you don't want to rely on your grinding equipment to grind a lot of material off. You want to cut as much off as you can. So I'm just chipping off a little bit of glass there. So I'm going to do the straight piece first. And use my running pliers. A little pressure, comes right off. So it's really not that hard to cut glass. You just have to understand that it wants to break off in a straight line. So you need to think ahead, plan out your pattern, make sure you have a way to cut your pieces apart, and score the glass. You're not trying to cut the glass with the wheel. And use your tools to get the results that you want. So I'm going to speed up the rest of this video, and we'll proceed with cutting the rest of the pieces out, and you can follow how I'm doing it. And then we'll put the piece together using the foiling method, and that's of course after I grind everything smooth. So you see the little groove on the pencil cutter. That's sort of an indicator as to where your wheel is and helps you know where you're cutting or scoring. So I hope that instruction helps you a little bit with your cutting. You do need to use the cutting oil, or it really doesn't work very well. Those are my nippers. And we're getting down to some really tiny pieces here. I need a center for my flower. And of course the beak. Actually, I recut this in orange. I didn't want the red beak. And the flower petals. Now the inside lines for cutting is a little bit more trickier. You have to kind of chip it out. And I also use the grinder that helps me to round those edges. Using the nippers to get into the little grooved area. Just take your time when you're cutting. See the little score line? That's what it looks like. Now some glasses will be a little more difficult to score than others. Black here was very easy to score. Okay, speeding ahead. I'm going to grind every piece, and I'm going to fit the pieces up to my pattern. And when I'm grinding, I want to take off as much, well, I want to smooth the edges first of all, so that the foiling tape will adhere to it well. And I also want to make sure that I've taken off all the little bits of Sharpie marker left behind from the pattern, and that will get me as close as I can to getting a good fit on my whole pattern, putting it together. Letting the grinding wheel do its work, putting a tiny bit of pressure against it, not much, and going back and forth over it. By the way, this pattern of the Cardinal is a free pattern that is provided with the Glass-Eye 2000 software, and I am an affiliate of the Glass-Eye 2000 software company. And if you're interested in purchasing the program, please use the link that I provide, or the code that I provide, and that will give me a small commission as well. So magically we have everything all fit up, and we're proceeding with our foiling. And again, when you foil, you want to make sure the glass is in the center of the foil, and make sure it is adhered to the glass by burnishing it with, I'm using a clay tool, but you could use a pencil, you could buy a burnisher, but you need to make sure that it is fully adhered to the glass, because that is your foundation for your solder work. And I go over these different things in some of the other videos that I have. We're speeding through so as not to bore you. Working towards putting this cardinal bird together. Cardinal will be available for purchase on my website, artbycherylann.com. Please visit my website and check out all my artwork, my paintings, and my stained glass work, and my abstracts. See how nicely all my pieces fit together. Hang in there, because at the end I'm going to do some embellishment on these pieces as well. Pattern doesn't call for it, but as an artist I can't leave things alone, so I have to add to it to make it even more interesting. So now I'm putting the pieces together on the pattern to make sure that they're all in the right spots, and I'm using these metal pins to hold the pieces in place. And I slow things down, so I'm going to use Novocan liquid flux. And I'm going to put it in my little flux jar that I got at Hobby Lobby. I paid $1 for. I believe they were $2, but it was 50% off glassware. And it has a nice lid that secures tightly so as not to spill my material. I'm using 60/40 solder. And my brush, my old brush, but you can use, there's flux brushes out there that you can use. I just used an old paintbrush that I didn't care about. And my favorite soldering gun, the FX601. And it's at 360 degrees. It's a Hacko brand. There's a link to the soldering iron in my description below. And I'm just going to tack all my pieces with a little drop of solder after I've fluxed, of course, those little areas, just to hold the piece together. And then I'll take the pattern piece out and put my flux down. And the first go around on the front side, I really just don't care how it looks. It's just to tin and to fill the gaps, or fill my seams rather, with solder on the front, because I'll go back over it and make my seams beautiful at the end. Flip it over and I'll do the same, but on this side I will make my seams beaded and nice to look at, because I don't want to go back to it. So I want to fill my seams and also have enough material so that the solder has nice round look to it. Solder the edges of the piece. You want to make sure that your piece is perpendicular to the surface and horizontal, so that gravity will help you bead the edges. This is going super fast, but it does take a little bit of time because you need to let it cool a little bit before you move on to the next section. Otherwise your solder will just fall off. And I do have some soldering tips in another video that will help you. Covers it a little bit more in depth as to how to get a good bead and all that in the video above that's linked. So if you want any more information on soldering, that's the video you want to check out. So I'm just going back over my seams and making sure I have nice smooth soldering beads and the piece is looking pretty. Checking over everything, making sure that all my copper is covered and my edges are nice and smooth and rounded. And I'm going to put 2 rings on this. For hanging. And I just want to tack it with a little bit of solder, and then I want to add a little solder bulk to the rings to make sure that they're good and strong. And adding the hanger rings can be a little tedious. As you see, it fell off on me. And the trick is just to let it cool down a little bit. Otherwise, it does fall off on you sometimes. They can be fiddly. Keep in mind that this video has been time-lapsed and it takes a lot longer than it looks to put a piece like this together. Now we're going to do some embellishing. I decided I wanted to put some stems and some veins in the leaves. So I'm using some copper wire. I believe it's 18 gauge uncoated copper wire. Put a little flux down, tack them in, and then flux the vein and tin it. So if you're interested in designing your own pieces, check out the Glass High 2000 software. It really does help to create some of these things, and it gives you a nice printed pattern. And it's a very useful tool for someone who's doing a lot of these things. So check that out. If you decide to buy, use my link or my code to purchase it. That will help support my channel, and thank you if you do that. I thank you. If you purchase any of the items that are listed in my description below, I am an Amazon affiliate as well, and that also helps support my channel. These are at no additional cost to you. It just simply gives me a commission for a referral. And I'm putting some little embellishments on the flower. And I'm trying to hold it with the pliers. It didn't work, so I used an old brush, and that seemed to work much better. To hold it still so I could get it tacked in there. And they give you lots of free patterns just for trying out the software. So you have 30 days to try it out and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, you get to keep the patterns. You get to use the patterns and the resizer. And it's another tool for free. There's the flower and the leaves. A little bit of embellishment brings a little more interest to your pieces. And there is the cardinal all finished. Oh, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.